Dark Souls is a weird game. You play as a being in the limbo that lies in the area between life and death. You're simply known as undead. Your humanity can be boiled down to just a simple consumable, with little more meaning than souls or your stamina bar. There's a lot of other oddities that pervade this game. Some that make sense in the full context of the game, and others that, even entrenched in the entirety of Lordran, are simply bizarre. I think most people watching know vagrants exist. These creepy little crab guys with tendrils coming out of them. They're probably the rarest enemies in Dark Souls due to the weird way they spawn. For those who don't know, evil vagrants spawn after losing a bloodstain with 5 or more humanity, and good vagrants spawn if the player leaves certain items on the ground and reloads the area. This sends an item drifting into other players' worlds, and after drifting through 10 of them, it'll become a good vagrant. Just by the nature of how this mechanic works, most players go multiple playthroughs without ever seeing a single vagrant, and, in the Prepare to Die edition at least, it's no longer possible for new ones to spawn. These are cool and all, but again, not very niche, and I have some other enemies that I favor a bit more. The Darkroot Garden holds a handful of strange enemies I like a lot. To start, there's these weird two-headed tree lizards which I remembered as being part of the possessed trees, but it turns out they're their own unique enemies. There's only 2 of them in the entire game as far as I know, and their poison bite has the strongest poison effect in the game, tied with the Sanctuary Guardians. They only have like 1 attack, and before you approach them, they just idle almost motionlessly hanging off the tree. You can actually knock them off the tree, and the little freak will start jumping around and you can see its whole model. It gains a few new attacks once it's on the ground. Look at this one where it attacks you standing behind it. The so-called frog rays are a little odd too. They literally only appear in this one area in the Darkroot Garden clumped together. Its attacks are mostly just flailing their tongue at you, but there's the rare attack that you can only see if you leash one of them to some water. Once they're on the water, they'll stop using their legs to crawl around, and it looks like they just start gliding. The rare attack is when they spit this gross sludge. The possessed trees I mentioned earlier are also bizarre. They're not really enemies, and more just like a hurdle you have to kill to bypass. They don't have any attacks and they just kind of move around. The big cats are really weird too. There's only 3 in the entire game, and if you run into their aggro range, you'll usually get ganked pretty hard. Their movesets are way more brutal than you would expect from looking at them, making them a huge pain in the ass to fight. After you kill them, you can jump up on the left side to where they spawn. You weren't supposed to get up here, so obviously there's not much to be seen. Back in the day though, you could harass invaders from up here. I guess you still could in Remastered. I doubt From patched it. The jump is kind of a pain in the ass though. The New Londo Ruins houses the Massive Souls, a disgusting amalgam that lurks under the flooded waters, only visible when strained. I tend to go straight from draining the ruins to the 4 Kings, so coming across these guys is pretty rare for me. They have an attack similar to the frog rays, but this one coats you in goo that slows you down. There's also these floating skulls down here called wisps. They're only found here and the catacombs, and just float up to you and explode. Not much to these guys. Finally, the banshees are interesting. They spawn in holding babies to their chests, and they even have a unique weapon they can drop. Their moveset has them shooting lightning at you from their babies for some reason, and a short range melee attack if you get too close. This is probably relatively common knowledge compared to some things in this video, but you can attack the ghost down here without the consumable if you get cursed by Seath or a Basilisk. Also, there's this pervert ass hollow down here lounging around. He's surrounded by others bashing their own heads in and completely losing it. Meanwhile, he's just cooling, admiring the view. On his popular loner type shit for real. You can deflect the 4 Kings' homing attack with the Dragon Roar or any force spell. You can deflect most projectiles in the game with these actually. After you kill the 4 Kings, if you go talk to Ingward, he'll get sent to Firelink.
Man, The sunlight made me wince, and now I've come back to this dark hole. So what brings you here? I will help you in any way I can.
He acts just like normal up here. You can buy Dispel Curse and Transient Curses from him, but as far as I know, he's the only NPC that will stay at Firelink for your whole playthrough. You can get other ones to stay if you just don't continue their quest lines, but for someone like Laurentius or Big Hat Logan, they'll eventually leave if you actually interact with them enough. Ingward's questline, however, is effectively finished, so he has no reason to leave. This is something I really like. It makes going back to Firelink feel like you have a good buddy you can rely on. I always forget about this Crystal Knight a little before Seath. They're the only one in the game and is a beast at parrying. Their moveset is basically just the Crystal Straight Swords attacks. I always felt like From should have had more of these in the game. I think their design is really cool. The crystals growing out of their arms, and especially the ones coming out of their head, are so sick to me. Also, continuing up the path, you can exit Seath's fog wall if you just turn around after entering it. There's no other fog wall in the game that you can do this with. Obviously though, you can't progress without glitches if you don't get killed by them, so it doesn't really serve any purpose. Once you do get killed though, you get sent to the prison. Usually warping is disabled down here, but if you just rest at the bonfire through the bars, you can warp like normal. One of my favorite areas in the entire game is the section before the Crystal Cave that leads to Seath's actual encounter. It's very similar to the area before the Hydra and the Darkroot Garden, even carrying over the same types of enemies. Well, minus the big one. These guys are cool, but the best part about here is the general area. It's something so sloppily put together. I love the repeating textures and the goofy ass trees that are placed almost without thought. I think most players probably run straight through this area, beelining straight to Seath, at most making a stop at Siglin.
It was you who rescued me. Why, thank you.
Or maybe getting the trunk that's in the corner here. I think that's kind of the intention of the area though. I doubt From intended players to spend much time here. They'd probably all see the big crystal cave in front of them and be like, holy shit, and run there immediately. That being said though, there is also the crystal armor set that's here, which you already know how I feel about. Big empty areas like these remind me of games like Classic WoW. Huge expanses of land, sparsely populated by only the occasional patch of grass, grove of trees, or mob. It also brings to mind an N64 game called Quest 64. Something I never even played but just watched a video of in my youth, and for some reason, the graphics and art style left a bizarrely distinct footprint in my mind. You see a lot of stuff like that going out of bounds in some games. There's a bunch of ways to go out of bounds in this game, but that's kind of out of the scope of this video. Did you know that the Moonlight Butterfly regenerates health when it lands on the bridge? It makes sense, I mean they had to have a reason for it to come down in range of melee players, but it's not something I ever noticed due to how little health the boss has. Somewhere else that I wouldn't say I love, but certainly always interested me, is this room where you get the large Divine Ember. Like what's the intended route here really? Just run in, grab the item and die? Take a bow and shoot the enemies who, by the way, are surrounded by darkness? There's so many skeletons here that any sort of melee approach is completely unreasonable. There's a rare interaction that you can get with Lautrec if you free him. Start Rhea's questline, kill the Capra Demon, then talk to Petrus until he mentions that Rhea has gone missing.
Again? Me? I've become separated from my lady.
If you go to Lautrec, he'll tell you what happened for the price of a level up.
Pay for a useful tip? A wise choice indeed. Maiden Thurland and her followers recently arrived in this land, but she became stranded deep below the catacombs. Her followers either fled or were reduced to hollows, leaving Maiden Thurland all alone. Not a bad tip, huh? a Nubar cleric would be replete with humanity.
Now you can go back to Petrus and he'll confess his betrayal.
Oh, hello there. Have you spoken with Sir Lautrec? Splendid. In the depths of the catacombs, Milady slipped off the giant's coffin and into a hole. Her two companions are no longer human, and the lass weeps in solitude. Right now, you could do as you please with her. The poor little purebred is entirely helpless.
Did you know that the kick animation changes if you have the Cestus equipped? Or that the orange chartering adds fire damage to your kick? This also shows that Solaire has the orange chartering on, because if he kicks you, you'll take some fire damage. Demon Fire Sage is kind of a shitty boss, just another reskin to Silent Demon. Fortunately, you can use Vow of Silence to cripple its attacks, removing the obnoxious AoE it has. Poison Mist's animation was always kind of goofy to me. I didn't really have to do all that. Also, you can turn the spell into a projectile by unlocking, which is useful, I guess. Well, that's all I got for you folks. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe, please comment your thoughts, blah blah blah, who gives a shit. Thanks for watching.